That's the whole theme here that's going to happen. We're like three guests waiting for somebody to arrive for after dinner drinks, possibly, because the conversation will, and quite honestly, will ensue with a guest, a special guest. And guys, I'm going to put you on the spot just like I always do. Kate, Adam, I want you to tell me about your special guest. And where'd you meet him?
Okay, so my good friend Kevin McEachern is joining us today. And I've known Kevin, God, I don't know, 20 years maybe. I've trained with him at the Muay Thai gym, and we met, I think, in a sparring competition. And then the competition just never stopped. But the reason I'm excited to have Kevin on board here is because he worked for years at Indigo as a regional leader, and his job was essentially to mentor and motivate people, and like leadership was something he lived and breathed a long time, and he still does. So we thought, what a cool topic, right? When we talk about kind of leadership and the journeys that we go on and some of the mistakes that we make. And so we invited Kevin to kind of give us his take and tell some stories of some of the mistakes that he's made and all these kind of things. So I think you guys will like him. He's a good guy. And then turns out Caitlin is also good friends with his wife, Michelle. So there you
go. Small world.
Right? Yeah. And
I love it. We're making this small world just a little bit more relatable.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly. So we'll bring
and he also as Kylo Ren in his spare time, right?
He's also, if you ever watch my or our like leadership videos on Batman and Kylo Ren, he's Kylo Ren. So that was a pandemic sanity project that we did. we were just banging our heads against the wall last year. We're like, you know what, let's make something kind of silly and fun. So we did.
Yeah, good for you guys. You know, yeah. I know what video you're talking about, because I think, you know, if anybody's been in this situation where it's like I'm on your site, I'm about to watch it, something distracted me. I know exactly that moment, and I never watched the video, but it was sitting there ready for me to hit the play button. So I consciously said I was going to watch it, right? But then something, you know, swooped in and captured my attention and pulled me to some other
ready for it yet, man. You weren't ready for it.
It wasn't meant to be, right?
That's right.
When you're ready, the video will find you.
Yeah. I'm curious, while we're waiting for Kevin here, do you guys have any kind of cool stories of, like something you learned as a leader, or that somebody you were looked up to, like taught you? Like, do you have any tidbits or gems that come to mind?
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, Caitlin's got a good one. Okay, let's hear.
I got a couple.
Okay.
Yeah, same here. But I want to hear Caitlin's.
Oh, okay. The first one that I learned coming out of school was from a gentleman named Bill Clark, and he was the VP of Business Development at Acon. And he kind of took me under his wing and mentored me, and we worked on a bunch of projects together. And one of the things he's always said was, build your champions around you. You will get way higher by being lifted up by those who support you than ever getting a hand up from the top. And so that just resonated with me. And watching him work, and like, he was kind to everyone, right? He walked into a client's office, he was kind to the person who greeted him, to the janitor, to whoever was just completely kind and personable always. And it had nothing to do with, oh, you can't do anything for me, but what can I do for you? And that's really stuck with me as a leader.
Cool.
That's beautiful. I mean, honestly, that's really, really beautiful story. If I was a follower of Peterson or Jungian philosophy, there'd definitely be a strong archetype mixed with like somebody very stoic and compassionate. And these are kind of the legends that I think we're building without any kind of pejorative at all. You can feel the power of being able to align yourself with those influences, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so what culture does is that these kinds of archetypes come through in our drama or literature. And I think that, moving to Wednesday's episode where we work on our book together, the idea is that we try to embody some of these strong characteristics into some of your characters. They say like that person represents this theme. That person is the embodiment of those actions, right?
Yeah.
Now you can introduce a little bit of flaw, or you can, some conflict. And one of the ways that you can do it is do it on a meta scale. Like, what are the conflicts that are kind of happening on a social commentary level? And these are some of the things that are drawing him with like personal inside conflict kind of thing, right? But I mean, back to the inspirations. I can think of one in particular, and it's actually I changed who I wanted to introduce actually after I heard yours, right? So this is a part of that kind of group kind of dynamic. Back when I was in undergraduate age, I was working for a company that rented out storage containers, right? And construction equipment in Calgary.
Okay.
And so this was down by, the old Longhorns, right? The country bar.
Yeah.
And there's like a chapters and this kind of thing. It's Southwest Calgary, right?
Okay.
That was kind of like my old stomping ground, kind of, right? Anyways, I worked for a fellow down there, and he rented out these storage containers and construction equipment. And this was some of the best years of business knowledge that I had by far, right? Because these were like the owner entrepreneurs, hanging out in an ATCO trailer, drinking rum and cokes and talking about, deals and what was going on. And, so it was just a really good way for people to communicate, right, with other business people. Right. And so that was the most valuable part. That's what that particular person, my boss, actually reminds me of. He actually he's the doppelganger to the guy in Michael Madsen in Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. That sick dude that cut the guy's ear off? That's what this guy looked like, right?
I'm embarrassed to say I've never seen Reservoir Dogs. Can you believe that?
Oh my goodness. Okay, this is tying it back, Adam. You're brilliant. This guy is a genius. This guy is an absolute genius. We talked about so you've got Reservoir Dogs, right? And you're saying that Kate said this wisdom, like the book doesn't choose you, or you don't choose the book chooses you. Okay, well, Tarantino is now choosing you, Adam, to go and look and watch that movie tonight.
All right, I do enjoy it.
I'm telling you, this is okay, dude. It's like a classic. You have to watch Reservoir Dogs tonight or sometime in the next 72 hours.
Okay.
72.
All right. Kevin says he's here. He's backstage. Whenever.
Oh yeah, he is backstage. Okay.
Let him in. There he is.
Hey. Kevin.
Hello, sir.
Hey, I made it. I thought it was 1 o'clock. Damn it.
It's okay. It's okay. We were just talking trash about you, so it's fine. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I think there was talk about you not seeing Reservoir Dogs. That's what I.
Oh, you heard it all. Perfect.
I know. Adam, I throw recommendations at Adam all the time, and he's like, I've never seen that. And I'm like, oh my God. But then I realize Adam's also younger than I am. So I give him a bit of a break on that. Yeah, it works out.
Okay, well, I'm glad to have you on the show. We're all happy to have you on the show. But let's complete that loop for a minute, right? I was right in the middle of the point of saying when I need to go back to Adam's site and Kate's site, their YouTube channel, and watch you in the video.
I was talking about heroes and villains, and
all right, yeah.
Dan's seen it. He's just never clicked on it. So
I haven't got there yet. It just like Adam and Quentin Tarantino, right? I can see the hashtags already showing up in this video. Like this should be hitting like 1 million views, right? Because who doesn't want to hear about Quentin Tarantino?
Right? 100%. Yeah, for sure.
Somehow I still think it's a steep curve to climb, don't you?
Yeah, it's always a steep curve, man. So.
I was telling him, Kevin, that we met in a sparring competition back in the day, and that just never really stopped. In fact,
No.
Kevin was beating me up on Saturday, so.
Yeah. Well, no, it stopped for me, Adam. It didn't stop for you because my nose was broken. And what happened was Adam had to fight the fights I was supposed to fight. So you ended up fighting, I believe, 3 hours straight. Some sort of crazy number. So thank you for saving my bacon on that one.
Okay. Well,
shit, guys, if that's not a testimonial, I haven't heard one, man. He just goes to bat for you there, like throwing his body into the, into the sausage maker.
Yeah.
So we were just trading back and forth some like inspirational stories from our careers about leaders that have kind of dropped us a tidbit of wisdom or whatever. And we were pretty excited to have you on board. So I gave him a little bit about kind of your background and said you had some cool stories to kind of prompt some cool conversation here. So I'm pretty interested to see where your head's at, Kevin. What you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody that's done leadership for any particular amount of time has a lot of stories, and a lot of them not always cool, right? A lot of ugly stories, and a lot of cool stories for sure. But I think for me, leadership is a journey. It's not about the destination. The journey is the destination, and I think as a leader, you are always growing. You are always adapting. You can't say you've arrived. I mean, when people are like, "I've arrived. I am like a master of leadership." No, you're not. No, and clearly you have a lot more to learn. I don't think there's a Jedi Council for leaders, and if there is, I'd love to meet them.
Well, and I think we all know the Jedi Council made some very pointed mistakes, right? So
yeah. Yeah.
I have to chime in with a philosophy plug. I got to do it, guys. I got to do it. So, I mean, despite any kind of derivatives of the Republic, which was the Plato dialogue, turning into some sort of this is not a political comment at all, but this is from a standpoint that the leaders themselves, right, were supposed to be philosopher kings, right? Now, in terms of like coming prior to the label, whether it was philosopher kings or politicians or business consultants, whatever that label is, leadership is something that is universal. We all understand where it is, and we all we move towards it, right, as people. And so I always liken it to the idea of the that guiding star, the one in the northern hemisphere that helps birds with their orientation, right? Mm-hmm. This is how we navigated the heavens. It's a pole star, right? And so naturally in our groups and our social sort of capabilities, we do gravitate towards leaders. And so the conversation that we need to have is, and it's the ongoing, it's the Platonic dialogue, really, reincarnate, is just basically how do you do it in a good way?
Yeah. And how do you do it in a way where it remains relevant? Leadership, I think, when I think about when I started in leadership, it was, in the 90s. And that was where you could walk into a room during a staff meeting and look at all your staff with a stack of resumes and say, better results, or these are your replacements, right? And that was a very accepted way of leadership, I think, in the 80s and 90s, where it was all about results and less about the people. And I think what happened, especially, I mean, it's funny with the pandemic, it's really come to light, but the style of leadership where it's about empathy, care, putting your team first before the results, putting their growth and development first before the results, that style of leadership has been brewing and coming to light over the last 20 years. But all of a sudden with this pandemic, right, where leaders are tasked to be more empathetic and more understanding, with the rise in mental health in their teams and all these different issues that are happening over the past year, has really brought these leadership philosophies that have been brewing to light. And what's happening, I'm starting to see, is people are like, oh my God, I got to figure out how to be an empathetic leader. I don't even know what that is. But it's not new news, but it's now it's become really important, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And there's a lot of people out there that are leaders that shouldn't be leaders. And it's okay. I've even said it to somebody that worked on my team. They were just not a great leader. I said, you're just not a great leader, and that's okay. Not everyone's built to be a leader. I mean, you can do other things in an organization and be successful without being a leader. And you can always influence a team from within. You can always influence and grow people from within a team dynamic without being a said leader. I think that's everybody's role on a team, but some people are just really bad at it, right? And that's a lot of self-reflection and on their part to come to that conclusion. And that's what this person said to me. They were like, I think I'm just a bad leader. And I said, well, there's no such thing as being a bad leader. It may just not be something you're good at. And maybe we just think about you doing something different where you'll find yourself more successful. Because when you have somebody that's failing at leadership, they start failing their team. They start failing the culture and the values of the company. They show up in a way that does not inspire anybody, right? And a lot of it's coming from their internal dialogue of, I'm struggling to do this. So I feel like I'm all over the map, but anyways.
No, actually, I really have to congratulate you, Pat. You're like yourself on the shoulder there, because as you were talking, I was thinking, I'm going to ask him, how do you tighten it up? I'm going to ask him to give some specific examples of who that particular person is, because I had some ideas about that, who that particular person is, based on the definition of leadership, right? That we kind of already established. And then you very beautifully brought up the idea of, somebody not holding up their end of the bargain in terms of like social values, or, disappointing themselves consistently. Something that doesn't, that we can all agree does not replicate well. Maybe we've all been there where it's like, whatever I'm doing, I wouldn't want to replicate it. It's, I'm just not on the right groove. Right? And so I think that's kind of the idea.
I think it's really funny. Well, maybe not funny, but you just caused me to reflect there, Kevin. When we talk about leadership and like, hey, you're not a great leadership, but we automatically still hang on to, I think, this idea of this hierarchical organization with a leader, right? Like someone said to me, you're a bad leader, I would feel, devastated about that. But I'm thinking of leadership in terms of like, the top dog in front of, in an assembly or something like that. But there are so many different types of leadership, right? Just because the person's not good, being organizing or inspiring a team doesn't mean they don't just get down in there and then lead by example in a different way. That's totally awesome, right? So I feel like there's also a reframing in our own minds and our own culture of what that term actually means. That makes sense.
I think the key point there, Adam, is that person can't feel like it's a demotion. Right? Because I actually know of somebody who's quite brilliant, that is very works on their own really well, but does it really perfectly. And I'm inspired. Yeah. Right. And so there's a subtle sort of like, man, I just, how would such and such a person do that? Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's about finding the right level of leadership that works best for you, and maybe it's not being a director, maybe it's being more of a manager of a smaller department, because you're more about close-knit relationships, and because there's a lot of people at the higher director levels that struggle with connecting with other people at the same level as them, and there's a heightened sense of responsibility as a leader, especially the higher you go, to live the values of the company. And I've seen it happen, and I've even experienced this myself years ago, where I wasn't aligned with the values, and it was really hard to live them and role model those values as a leader with everybody watching you when you're not aligned. And you have to find, if you're going to be in leadership wherever you are, you have to align with the values of the organization. Your values need to be similar. They don't have to be exactly the same values, but your values need to resonate with the organizational values. Otherwise, you're just going to come across as inauthentic and not real, and you're not going to connect well with people. But people that, like, I've seen it happen where, people were promoted to, so I have a retail background. So people were promoted to a store manager, and they were an amazing assistant manager, but they got promoted to a store manager, and it was just too much responsibility. They couldn't get over the amount of responsibility it held. The job was too complex. And I've seen people take step backs into lower management roles, and lower management's not the right term, but taking a step back in title, because they were contributing better to the team in that particular place. And either they weren't ready to go to that general manager role, or they're just not cut out for it, right? Like, people are always seeking that next level of promotion with every organization they're in. But sometimes you have to ask yourself, is that actually something you can do?
Well, and I think that's the problem with the way we have businesses set up, is that we set up career paths, right? And like, it's all about promotion and moving up, and then you're a manager, and then you're a leader, and then sorry guys, there's only one CEO position. We can't all be gunning for it. What does success actually look like to a person? And this is where we have created our own monster, is that we haven't helped people define what success looks like. And that's really being able to grow your own strengths and work within your strengths. That's success. It's not a title. It's not how many people you have reporting to you. It's not, we've created this persona around leadership and hierarchy in the business, and it's caused more problems than it has good.
It's because we've made the path, we've determined it for them. We've said this, here's the graph, right? Here's the hierarchy, here's the PowerPoint presentation, this is exactly what you need to do to achieve this. And, you know, where I feel like companies are starting to realize, don't make it such a map, like use a compass versus a map. If you say to somebody, this is, use your moral compass, you know, we're not going to tell you how to do it. We're not going to show you how to do it. We're going to give you the tools. We're going to coach you, but you find your own way to the title that makes the most sense. Because I feel like if someone is gunning for that next promotion, so I start with the company, let's say I get hired as a VP. All I want to do is be the CEO. That's all I want to do. I don't care about being the VP. I want that CEO position. Well, guess what? I'm going to be so focused on being that CEO that I'm not going to do a great job as a VP.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to disengage my team because I'm only concerned about myself and my trajectory and my journey and getting to where I want to go. My team's going to be like, who's this guy? And he's not with us. He seems to be 3 steps ahead of us. He's not with us as a team. He doesn't seem to be interested in what we're doing. He just seems to be interested in himself. Right. And I think the term servant leadership has become very popular lately because that's an expectation now, which is I'm not here to serve myself. I'm here to serve you, my team. But people that don't have that ability to recognize the importance of that or understand what that is, they technically tend to leave their teams behind. And they end up doing, in a lot of cases, a really poor job at the role that they're supposed to be doing. Because I've experienced it. I was a store manager. I wanted to be a district manager so badly. And that's all I wanted to do. I didn't care about being a store manager anymore. I was tired of being a store manager. So I started gunning for that district manager role. I disengaged my entire team. Like, who are you? Like when the district manager or VP or CEO, they don't even show up like you. Like, who's this person? Yeah, and I'm glad I had a team brave enough to give me that feedback because I checked myself pretty quick. And I realized so the minute I stopped looking for that next promotion with the organization I was with, it actually happened 2 years later, right? And it happened when I was ready for it because, my God, if I would have taken it the 2 years earlier when I wanted it, I would have been a failure. I would not have been successful because I wasn't ready. But in my mind, my ego was pushing me forward. And ego is a culture killer. Everyone should have a little bit of ego, but if you've got too much ego, you're going to kill the culture of your business. You're going to kill the culture of your team. Just call it right there. It's done. Right.
Well, that's an important part. You said, like, I was thankful that my team gave me that feedback.
Yeah.
But you took it. How many people would take the feedback? Right? They would be offended. They'd make excuses, like, whatever, replace their teammate. Like, you were willing to take it and grow. And that says a lot about being able to check the ego at the door and say, okay, there's room for me to grow. That's huge.
Yeah.
I use the thing with my son. I'll say, you have to own that, you know?
Yeah.
You own
that mistake is yours to own.
Yeah.
You own that. No one else did that. You did that, right? You have to say, now that's part of what I did, right? That's okay. But you got to say that. That's your past now.
Yeah. It's a learning, right? And Caitlin, to your point, it takes a lot of humility to sit down with somebody who reports to you, right? If you're all about that hierarchy, and for them to say, hey, you're kind of showing up like, are we allowed to swear on this? But anyways, you're showing up like a bit of a dick. I'm going to say it, you know, like what's going on? And I had built the relationships with my team in a strong way, but then all of a sudden I became so focused on that promotion that fortunately I had those relationships built, even though I was starting to drift away from my team. My team was like, we miss you. We want you back. Right. And that's how one of my team members said it. They're like, we miss who you are and how you contribute to this team. We want you back. Can you just focus on us? You'll get there on your own. That will happen when it's meant to happen. And it was wise feedback, and I took it. It hurt. I didn't like to hear it. I went to bed mad. I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. I've been a great leader for my team this whole time. I've been on this journey. So I guess that's one mistake a leader can make, is being so focused on the next level of their career that they're not doing their team justice in terms of how they're showing up for their team that they're with right now. And they're forgetting that as a leader, if you want to call yourself a leader, your team comes first. Their needs come first. You are not first, ever, right? And people will struggle with that, and people are currently struggling with that, because it is asking a lot for somebody to say, you know what, you need to actually care about everybody else more than yourself. So there you go. Right? It's a powerful thing. Leadership is not easy, and it's not for everybody, and that's what I mean, because not everybody's built to be empathetic and kind and caring. And I've also seen leaders that are incredibly kind and empathetic and caring, but can't give their team any feedback because they don't want to hurt their feelings. Well, that doesn't help, and I've been that leader too. And let me tell you, the moment of uncomfortableness that you have when you're giving somebody raw, hard feedback, right? It sucks. It sucks in the moment. It's going to hurt later, but you get it done, and then you both move forward and you both grow from it. But if you don't take that opportunity to have that tough conversation with them right there, you will regret it even worse later, and it actually turns into a bit of a circus down the road because you didn't take that moment. I've experienced it. So now I'm very, like, whenever I'm working with somebody who needs that feedback, I'm going there right away. I have to. Because the suck is horrible if you don't, because things are viral, right?
Well, I feel like until you've been bitten enough times, right? You know, you can listen to all the advice and read all the books and everything, but until you've like let that go for a period of time and it's exploded, like you said, it's a circus.
It's not good.
You're not going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So what's the best way? Like, let's be honest. Like, even in our team, we set aside a specific day and time, and we every week talk like feedback, right? Yeah. Nice mug, by the way.
I know. I just thought I'd do that for some shameless promotion for you guys.
Good.
Wait a minute, you guys. I can do better than that. Hold on a sec.
Oh, dear. What's going on?
Oh, well.
There you go.
That's the man behind the control panel right there.
Okay, back to my question is like, I still feel, and we're very proud of the team we've built, but I still feel like, you know, we're not quite there where people are willing to give complete, open, honest feedback. What can you do as a leader besides like consistently being willing to take it and act on it? Like, what else can you do as a team member or a leader to get the conversation going, to work through that?
The first thing I'll say is, what's the setting? If you're doing a conference call with your team and you're sharing feedback amongst the team, it doesn't matter how safe your organization is. Not everyone's going to go there, right? And somebody might have some feedback for you specifically they don't want to share in front of the rest of the team. So it depends on what the setting is. There are teams out there, I'm sure, that everyone can be like, you know what? Yeah, Caitlin, you kind of disregarded my email last week and it really hurt my feelings, right? I'm sure there's teams out there where everybody in the circle is comfortable sharing. I call it the sharing circle. But quite honestly, it's in the moment where it matters the most. If you've got somebody in your team that's done something that requires feedback, you can't wait, right? You got to go there right away, right?
Okay.
That is the biggest thing I can say, because then you start developing and flexing the muscle of accountability in the moment. Now, it's also making sure that you're not having that feedback conversation with them in front of other people, right? Like it's opening it up in a very safe way, which is, hey, when you ran that conference call earlier today, you missed some key points. I just want to talk to you about it. I think we need to discuss maybe how we attack this going forward in a different way so that the conference call is more meaningful for the audience, or whatever that looks like. And take it with the approach of making it a growing moment for them versus a bad moment, right? Like, how do we grow from this? And always say, how do I support you? And I think the one thing leaders do all the time is they'll say to somebody, what can I do for you? Right? What leaders rarely say is, how can I show up for you?
Yeah.
That's where you start building that trust and that ability for that person to start sharing with you and saying, well, Adam, honestly, I would prefer it if you're showing up for me, like, maybe just ask how my day was before we get straight to business. Right? Or maybe we get straight to business instead of asking me what my day's been like, because I don't have a lot of time. Right? Like, it's really about getting to know your team, understanding your team, and building that trust one-on-one, and that the feedback in the moment whenever possible. And then eventually, I feel like in a group setting, you'll start getting to that point where it's a little bit more safe for everybody to share openly on a call feedback. But we're all human beings, and it's really tough for someone to give someone feedback. So they're like, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Even though you're like, my God, you won't hurt my feelings. You're going to help me grow. How can I tell you this?
Yeah.
That actually reminds, I read this book called Thanks for the Feedback. And one of the takeaways I took from it that stuck in my mind was this concept of, we do spend a lot of time and energy now when people get promoted to a position where they're in charge of a team or whatever, where, okay, here's some manager training or leadership training, whatever you want to call it, right? And feedback is often a part of it, right? There's sometimes there's a 4 or 5 step process to it, right? And there's various ones out there. But the point of this book made is like, you could be the best giver in the entire world. If that person is not in a place ready to receive it, it is a disaster and doesn't matter. So, why don't we spend a little bit of time coaching people on how to receive feedback, for instance, right? What to do with it, how to unpack it, how to explore, because you get defensive, right? Especially if it's a surprise, right? Like, why don't we coach people like, hey, if you get defensive, take a moment, write it down, go away, whatever, But like,
except for you, Adam, you love surprises. So give surprise feedback to Adam all the time.
But that happened to me once. That actually, sorry, Dan, I'll tell a quick story, and then I went to a review, and the feedback was, well, we think your writing needs work, like your technical report writing. And this was new to me because I've been writing technical reports like every day for a year, and no one ever had boo. And now all of a sudden, it was this big surprise, and I was like, well, why didn't you just tell me the first time? I would have fixed it. Like, I think I'm pretty, so.
Well, that's an organization living 20 years ago where the feedback came at your yearly appraisal, right?
Like, that's the time to do it, right?
Yeah, and that's the worst time. A yearly appraisal, in my opinion, should be all about moving forward and growing. Like, let's come up with a development plan so you can continue to grow and move forward, because you've already given them all that type of feedback in the moment, or given them that feedback in monthly check-ins or weekly check-ins. Like, depends on the size of your team. You got a team of 50 people, but you can't get weekly check-ins for everybody. But you can probably commit to quarterly check-ins at the bare minimum, right? And those check-ins are not about a raise. They're not about giving you more money or giving you more responsibility. That check-in is, let's talk about your performance so far. So when you get to that yearly appraisal, it's not a surprise, right?
Yeah.
You've already received the feedback. You've already started working on it. And that was something my last organization was really good at, was your appraisal is not going to be, your yearly appraisal is not going to be a surprise, because it shouldn't be a surprise. Right? You are getting those monthly or quarterly check-ins where we talk about your opportunities to grow. We talk about how you can become a better technical writer, versus waiting a year to tell you, right? While you sit there and reflect on the year of, challenged technical reports that you've handed in, all you're thinking is like, I wish somebody would have told me, because I would have liked to do it better, right? So.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up a really good point, or at least I was taking some notes here, and I had this one virtue of leadership that I think I just wanted to double check with you to make sure that this we were on the same page.
Okay.
So in like a psychology kind of clinical situation, if you were to go and visit a clinical psychologist, this is almost one of the like utmost forms of confidentiality, right? So if you're in a position like as a consultant going into an organization trying to gather some of this information, right? Like in a group setting, what are your issues and beefs, kind of to summarize it, right? But then you say, hey, by the way, guys, my door's open here. I'm here for a couple of weeks. I come by every Friday or something like this, right? For one-on-one, but 100% confident. It's 100% confidential, right? Mm-hmm. You'd say, do you emphasize that point? Because it's not like you're taking that information and then reporting it back to, the client, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Right? If someone that has kind of an issue with Sally down the hall, then, it's not really about drumming up conflict. It's just about really listening to what they have to say. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think the first question you ask that person is, have you talked to Sally down the hall? Right. Before you talk to me about what what the conflict is. I think I think if you're in an organization and you're being asked to be a consultant and you're like, I'm here for 2 weeks, my door's open, come talk to me. I'm not a consultant for leadership right now. It's not what I do. I would be challenged to see whether or not that would be successful. For the reason being is you can leave your door open as much as you want, but you're a stranger to them. And you might get a lot of toxic individuals coming in, people that probably should have left the organization a long time ago, because they will be in your office, no problem. You'll have to like, hold on, wait. Billy's here. He's clearly very upset. He's been upset for 15 years. And right behind Billy is Stacey, who's been upset she's only been here for 3 years, but my God, she's upset, right? Because the people that care a lot about an organization and care about where they work, they've already probably had those conversations with the right people. So I don't know. I think you might get a lot of toxic people or disengaged people giving you feedback, but I don't think you'll hear the right feedback from the people that think the company is doing the right thing. Because it's like anything else. Like a customer will be the first person to leave some bad feedback about a product or, an experience at a store, an experience with another organization or another business. But you don't see a lot of customers taking the time to talk about the good stuff, right? A lot of people lean right into that negativity piece. So I would think as a consultant, you would need to be there longer than 2 weeks. You would actually need to go and work with the team, find out what they do, have coffee with them, build relationships. I think minimum 6-week process. You can't really put a timeline on it, depending on what the culture is in the building. But I don't think the information you would get in a 2-week time period would be enough to give you back to the client and say your organization is broken or your organization is fine. You just got some people in here that are quite toxic, right? Like I don't think 2 weeks to do it. So long way story. Yeah.
And I'll say this is that when we come in and audit, when we do audits or business evaluations, you'd be surprised when you talk process, it kind of lowers people's walls and so much dirt comes out. Like we hear it all when we go into an audit because they're so focused on the process and they'll be talking about it and they'll be like, but this happens. And I'll be like, oh, tell me about that. And they're like, oh, well, yeah, right. It's a really interesting way to get to that because it's not like, come in, tell me how you feel about your team. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about process, but it always comes around to that. Hey, Adam.
Oh yeah. And I'm actually curious, Kevin, your take on the role of human resources in an organization, because
big bad HR.
What we've seen a lot of is, let's say there's a personality conflict, right? Dan and I aren't getting along. We're butting heads. Yep. He reports something big. He goes to HR. He doesn't come to me. He doesn't go to my boss. He goes to HR, whatever. Or even if he does go to my boss, or if I'm the leader, I just push the HR button because as soon as it's personality qual, I'm like, oh, I'm not touching that, right? I'm not supposed to, or whatever. But I actually read about a company, and I can't for the life of me remember which company it was, where they actually forbade it. HR was not allowed to get involved with personality conflicts because that meant that their managers weren't growing as leaders and dealing with it. And I'm really curious to think, because I just feel like HR has become the safety net for uncomfortable spaces sometimes. I just wanted to play there a little bit and see what you thought.
I 100% align with HR should not be involved in any of those types of conversations. It's your job as a leader, if you've got two people on your team that can't come to a compromise on how to get along, to go in there and be a coach, right? And you've got to sit there. I call it the referee, right? Like you give them a safe space. It's the three of you. It's not in front of anybody. Get coffee. Do something to make it feel a little less formal, right? Maybe it's like, hey, like, why don't we come in for a casual Friday? Wear your most comfortable clothes possible. We'll grab some coffee and let's sit down and have a conversation about how we can make this work, because the two of you can't come to an agreement on how to work together, and we need to figure this out because no one's going anywhere. So how do we do this? Hitting the HR button is, I think that shows weakness for a leader. I think that shows that they don't have the courage to support their team. And I think it shows that they don't care about their team because they don't want to have anything to do with it. And I think more and more leaders are probably looking at that they need to be a part of that conversation. They want to call themselves leaders. HR to me is policies and procedures, rules and regulations, right? Like HR should be a business partner for you to help you understand, if you're using a compass and not a map, what the risks are, right? Because HR is a map, not a compass, right? Great leaders use a compass. The HR is a map. They'll be like, you can have that conversation. If you're going to have that conversation, please make sure you do this, 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 and this, and do not talk about this, and do not use this verbiage. Like, they are there for your check, That's it. You partner with them for that. When employees go directly to HR, it's because they've either gone to their leader and hadn't had that support, or their leader is bullying them or putting them in a position where they don't feel safe with their leader, right? And that's where employees start to go to HR, and that's a whole different conversation, and that's a different scenario. But as a leader, and two people on your team not getting along, yeah, you owe it to them to be involved in that and help them work it out, 100%.
Awesome. I love that metaphor of the map and the compass. That's
Yeah.
I won't take credit for it. I'll give that credit to a good friend of mine, Kevin O'Byrne, who's a director, and he's got an amazing gift of language, and he came up with that. And the best organizations, that's what they do. They'll say to you, because we want you to fail and make mistakes, we want you to have a compass mentality. Use your value set, right? You know what our policies and procedures are. That's the framework. The freedom within the framework is you with your compass to figure out how to get there, right? We're not going to hold your hand, we're not going to show you, because then we're taking away those opportunities for you to fall on your face. And I call it failing forward, right? You fail forward, growth. Yeah.
And that's something that I really loved, and I love that point that you made, Kevin, is that a company that wants to grow leaders and grow their team needs to give room and permission to fail, right?
Yeah.
And I loved that concept, the permission to fail. Like, go ahead, give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, learn, grow, get better. But it's the permission to fail, which is so important, because as soon as you say, yeah, go ahead, do it, they fail, repercussions. No one's trying anymore.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. And I think the other thing companies don't do well is the leaders don't let their team see them make mistakes, and they don't admit to the team that they've made mistakes. So they can sit there and say to their team, we want to create this culture of being fail and grow and everything else. But you can say that all you want, but if you're not sharing your mistakes with your team, if you're not letting them see you screw up or admitting that you've screwed up, you're not creating that culture, because you're not role modeling it. So your team isn't going to do it, right? It's like I used to say to my team, when I'm on vacation, I'm disconnected. I don't even bring my phone. So don't call me, don't email me. I'm out. You guys got this. You guys lean on each other for support. If you need somebody else to talk to, call this director. This director will help you. But I expect you guys to work it out amongst yourself as a team, support each other, but don't call me, right? So I had leaders try emailing and calling me. They couldn't get a hold of me. I was camping. I did not have my phone on me. I disconnect and I unplug. There's a great book for that. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a phenomenal book. So when my leaders started going on vacation, I would say to them, please leave your phone, right? Don't work while you're on vacation. Recharge your batteries. And they felt more comfortable doing it because they knew I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Huge.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. That does weave into your narrative as a leader, definitely. I wanted to maybe touch base on three things, if I may. I think some good resources for books, as we kind of approach the last 10 minutes of the show here. So there's an important resource for me, at least on sympathy. A go-to author is Brene Brown. I don't know if
naturally.
Right. So it's about being authentic and showing up. There you go. Right. So she's a phenomenon, thanks to Oprah Winfrey, but she's a wonderful woman. Right. So I really think that's an author that, is worth a plug or two, although I don't think she needs it. She's such a real famous person right now.
And well-deserved. Yeah. She's amazing.
Yeah. Love her. Yeah.
The other thing is that if you guys want to get into the academic side of process philosophy, this is something that is really, I guess, started with Alfred at North Whitehead. It's probably the closest in terms of a clinical biological explanation in a very, very cutting edge area of philosophy. So you might find some really good starting points and ideas from that culture of academic growth, right? So it's just called process philosophy. So I would recommend that. And then the final thing, Kevin, and this is probably a nice way to kind of put the thing on like a present or summary, this kind of thing. So I also really like this idea of the map and the compass. And so the idea that I had while while I was listening to your story is that, aren't you working on a book or something like that? Or some people bugging you to write a book, I hear?
No, not yet. No, but I mean, a lot of what I speak about and relate to is not necessarily original material for myself. Like, I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. I think he's phenomenal. He's brilliant. And him and Brené Brown actually did a podcast together recently on one of her podcasts. Adam, I think I sent it to you. I highly recommend that. It's funny, like, I'm not even in a leadership role right now in the current job I'm doing, but I am passionate about leadership. It's become a hobby of mine. I'm so interested in it. I'm always reading books on it. Have I written a book? Maybe one day I will, who knows? But I think the one thing I will say is, if I was going to recommend one book for anybody that's starting off in leadership, it's Marcus Buckingham's First Break All the Rules. And it's a lot of let's be honest, a lot of leadership books are a little dry, right? And you're just like, oh, when's this going to end? And can I have another glass of water because my mouth is dry from reading this, right? But Marcus does such a great job talking about the right fit and the right fit for yourself. And there's one line in that book that made me change my entire philosophy about leadership back in 2005 is, as a leader, you are always on stage. Always. People are always watching you. People are always listening to you. You may not even think they're listening to you, but they're listening to you. And when you tell somebody to do something and you're not doing that thing, they know. They're listening. They're aware, right? So it's about putting the pressure on yourself to always be aware that everybody you're leading is always watching you and listening to you. And there's pressure that comes with that, but it's good pressure.
There's a great story from Radical Candor, Kevin, that I really liked. The author is a lady that worked for Google, in charge of lots of people. And there was a new couch delivered, and it was kind of just dumped in the lobby, and it was kind of half blocking kind of the hallway. So she finally like put her stuff down, like, here, somebody help me move this couch. And here she was, like the kind of big shot director, like moving furniture in the lobby. And she put it down, and, you know, she was like, there, at Google, we move the couches. And just kind of like tongue in cheek made this funny comment, went about her day. And she said a week later, she came into a meeting or something, and it was like written on the board or something, or someone said it that wasn't even there, like entirely removed, but it just went through the, you know, the zeitgeist culture of like wildfire. So it was a great example of that. I love that.
Yeah. Well, it's now on the Google Oracle, so that's where we turn, isn't it? Hello, Google. So, on that, guys, they've been really wonderful guests, and Kevin, I don't know if I could preemptively tempt you to come back on the show, but I'd love to have you, and let's please do stay in touch, and to all the people that may watch this, please tune in again. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks.